Welcome back to the Dirt Road. I'm here with Rick.
That's Mike. What up, dog?
What's going on, sir?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
So, this particular episode, we're going to be talking about the polls and the state of the election and polls in general. But before we do, we've been called that, I don't know if it's called, but people have suggested that we're in some sort of a cult, because of our love of Donald Trump. So, Mike, I have a surprise for you. Our producer, Lauren, put together a little montage of me talking to our cult leader.
This will be good.
Donald Trump. So for all you viewers out there who think we're in a cult, this is what our cult is like. This is how I actually talk to my cult leader, Donald Trump.
And here we go.
Take it away.
No, but what do you think, Rick?
Yeah, well, jabs are great for a fight. It's not a fight, it's a debate.
I agree.
And he was straight up, the man was a dick last night. He just was a complete dick. And I got to tell you, and it pains me to say that because I voted for the guy twice. I'm voting for him a third time. I want him to be president. So for those of you who don't understand that, you could put down somebody that you're voting for, whatever.
You could not be happy with his actions, absolutely. Yeah.
But to me, that was an absolute dumpster fire. I was completely unprepared. And I got to tell you something else. I'm not directing this at you. You brought it up, but I'm not directing it at you. I am fucking sick of I'm sorry. I'm tired. The media is against me. Everybody cheats. It's fucking excuse after excuse after excuse. Grow up. If you know the media is against you, be prepared for it. You know what they're going to ask you. So everything was just leading in like that. He should have been fact-checking her, and he didn't, because he was too busy yelling and screaming and going off on fucking people eating dogs and talking about things that only a handful of people who follow Truth Social or watch Newsmax or Fox or something like that would even have a clue what he's talking about. Stop. Come on, you're on national TV. You can say her father's a Marxist. Who cares? What difference does that make? Her father was a Marxist. So what? Reagan was a Democrat at some point. His parents were Democrats. Big fucking deal. Stop with the nonsense, Trump, because you're going to blow the goddamn election. And it's going to be your fault. So you know what? You said you took a bullet for America. You did. You took a real one. But you refused to take a metaphorical one and just swallow your fucking pride for 90 fucking minutes for the country. So I'm sorry. All of this shit, I love my country. I took a bullet for my country. But you can't fucking take a moderator? Seriously? You can't prepare? You can't do it. You know these guys are going to come at you. You can't prepare? It's ridiculous, Mike. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired after. He's been in this for 9 years now. And it's nothing but constant fucking whining. The judges are against me. The Congress is against me. The fucking press is against me. Everybody's against. They cheat. They lie. Blah, 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 blah. It's enough. Trump, grow the fuck up. So Trump, if you really love America so much, grow the fuck up. There you go. Trump, you said you took a real bullet for America? Take the metaphoric one. Swallow your fucking pride. Stop with the election being stolen. Start talking about this November. What you're going to do. Stop with the, if I was president, this never would have happened. That's counterfactual history. Who cares? We don't know what would have happened or wouldn't have happened. Prepare for a debate. That's it. And stop with the moderators are against me. Go back on them. You'd fact check her if they're not fact checking her. Shut the fuck up about 2020 already. Just shut up. Shut up.
That said, Kemp is a snake. He's a snake.
I don't care.
Elect somebody who's not a snake,
Trump, shut the fuck up about 2020 already. Get yourself elected, you fucking moron. So, I just find it so petty and so stupid, and it drives the narrative in the direction that Harris and the press and everybody wants it to go in, which is off. The focus is off Harris. So when you start first of all, Joe Rogan is not getting booed. I don't know what Donald Trump thinks. Joe Rogan is phenomenally popular in the UFC, number one. Number two, even if Joe Rogan did endorse Bobby Kennedy, so what? That's his right. Find something else to do. He's had a bad couple of weeks. Harris has had a good couple of weeks. Why go in that direction and do something and just have a stupid argument over what? It was cute and it was fun in 2016 and the nicknames.
It was fresh and new and it was kind of like it was like a kind of
But Mike, I don't know.
You
got to grow up. I agree, but to me, being a Trump supporter is like me too. But I'm saying being a Trump supporter to me is like being a parent of a teenager. You love him, but you want to crack him in the fucking mouth almost every day, you know?
Well,
Just
he
shut
says crazy
up.
shit.
All right, and we're back. So, that's me talking to our cult leader, Mike. What'd you think about that?
I thought that was pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Listen, we like the policy, right? It's about policy, not people. It's about policy.
It's about people, too.
We want the person that can actually be effective and get that policy done. And he's effective. He can get the policy done. He proved it the first time. He can do it the second time.
But I don't think you're allowed to talk to your cult leader like I just spoke to ours in that one, do you?
No, you're not.
No, not at all. Anyway, Mike, Trump was here in our backyard the other night. Am I keeping you awake?
Nope. I work.
My God, if I'm boring my partner, what the hell am I doing to the people out there?
No, it's the busy season. Sorry, folks.
Trump was in our neck of the woods the other day.
Yeah.
Did a rally.
Yeah,
in
Nassau Coliseum.
County,
Yeah.
at the Coliseum. There was a lot of, before we get into the polls and everything, there was a lot of talk. I wonder what you think. I'm not sure what I think, but there was a lot of talk that he was wasting his time, kind of, doing a rally here in New York. Because he's not going to, please don't tell me you think he's going to win New York.
I think anything's possible at this point.
Yeah, anything's possible. I mean, snakes can crawl out of my ass right now, but it's possible. He's not winning New York, but...
Going back to our last video, that might be why his butt hurts.
But a lot of people do say that, legitimately, I'm talking about people on his side.
I know.
Say it was a waste of time and resources coming here to New York to
A lot of
do that.
people think that, yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think it's unlikely he'll win New York. I'm not going to lie.
What do you think about that argument? I mean, that it was a waste of time and resources?
I don't think it is.
Why not?
Because I think he's trying to inspire people. He's trying to motivate people. He's trying to grab as many votes as he can and trying to get people moving in the direction he thinks they need to move in. I think he's doing his best. So I don't think it's a bad thing to be campaigning in New York anymore. It's a bad thing to be campaigning in Minnesota or anywhere else for that matter.
No, but Minnesota, he has an outside shot of winning. I mean, probably not. The Republican hasn't won Minnesota since '72. New York, I guess it was Reagan was the last one to win New York. Did Bush, the first Bush win? And I don't remember.
No, Reagan.
So it's been a long time. But here's the thing. It does, too many people here in New York, like, here you go again, huh?
Oh, sorry, folks.
Too many people here in New York on our side don't vote because they feel, why bother, right?
Most of the state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So maybe something like Trump coming to New York can do that. It would be like, Kamala Harris is not going to win Alabama. No more than Trump's going to win New York. So I would assume maybe Democrats in Alabama or North Dakota feel the same way, and they're like, why bother, right? So maybe Trump coming to New York maybe would at least inspire people to make it a little bit closer and give maybe a more realistic view of what New Yorkers really think.
I mean, we saw it in the last election with Zeldin against Hochul. If you look at the map for blue versus red, whatever the way they make it up, Zeldin, if you look at the state, just as a state, it was almost all red. Yeah,
but that's not where the people live.
It's where a lot of people live, but that's not the point. The point is it was almost all red. But Hochul won those little segments where you had those high population density areas.
Exactly,
Which is
very high
right?
population.
Now, in that race also, it needs to be said, there was 300,000+ votes, more than there are voters in the state. More than voters in the state. Listen,
right.
You can call whatever you want, but I'm a damn detective. I know evidence when I see evidence, and I know what I'm looking at, and I know what it means. So, win, lose, whatever, it doesn't matter at this point. But the point is this. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be dealt with, because there's a lot of fraud in a lot of our institutions. Not just that, but in a lot of our institutions. And the way we do things is very, very susceptible to all kinds of fraud. So it needs to be fixed. And that's just my stance on that.
All right.
But
well, I mean, you brought it
it's
up, so now I have to give my stance. I mean, this is not what this is about. This is about polls. But here's my stance. We were talking in our last video, people live in a silo, right? We hear what we want to hear. We talk to people that we want to talk to. We read what we want to read, and it's fed to us on social media. Every election, Democrats and Republicans. Stacey Abrams, it was robbed from her. Carrie Lake, it was robbed from her. Donald Trump,
absolutely.
it was robbed. Lee Zeldin was robbed. Everybody's robbed, and the reason why everybody thinks they're robbed is because when people say, I don't know anybody that voted for Trump.
No, and
or people say, I don't know anybody that voted for Biden. They're not lying.
And here's where I'm going to disagree with you.
They're not lying.
Here's where I'm going to disagree with you, because I'm not talking about that. I know what you mean by that, but I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about actual numbers, actual no shit, real numbers. You can look at the amount of votes that were counted and compare it to the amount of voters in the state, and the discrepancy is 300,000+.
All right. Well,
that's a real number. That really happens. Somewhere along the way, that math does not work. It doesn't add up. So that's my concern. That's where I'm pointing this at. We're going to come back. We're going to do one episode at some point in the future. I'm going to compile a bunch of evidence about all this stuff.
No, I tell you what, I can't
And I'm going to put it out
Mike,
there.
I can't do that episode. You got to do it by yourself. You know why? Because you put me in a position that I can't win. You can't prove a negative. I can't prove that an election was not stolen.
No, I'm not talking about
It's
stolen or
impossible.
not. I want to present you. I just want you to look at it
But you
honestly.
gotta
I'm going
understand-
to
what do
present
I
you with
look-
evidence, and I'll show you the actual
I've
stats.
heard it. I've seen it. I've heard it and everything. You got to remember, again, you can't prove a negative.
It's not about proving a negative,
If I
it's-
suggested to you that Pluto has 5,000 square miles of cream cheese, you can't prove that it's not. You
Well,
can't prove
we
a
actually
negative.
can. Mass spectrometry, we can
You
prove
can't.
what the chemical
You
makeup is.
can't prove it. Even
But-
if you went there, you can't prove it. You can't prove a negative. Let's get to numbers that
That's not
we can agree on, numbers that are out there. And we are talking about polls. By the way, Trump's rally got a lot of people.
Well,
60,000.
yeah, every rally.
Yeah. Well, not 60,000 in. They can't fit 60,000
No, it was
in.
like
but
18,000 could fit
18,000 in, but then there was
And then
the
there was the
overflow.
overflow crowd around.
And then there was those that apparently couldn't get in that wanted to get in. So I don't know how
Yeah.
they estimate that, but supposedly around 60,000. Again, sounds like a lot, but I think there's 16, 17 million people in New York State.
Something
What
like
is it?
that,
Something
yeah.
like that. So it's a lot of people, but I don't know that the size of rallies really matter. I think Trump makes too much of that. But it does motivate people, and what it does also is it gets it on the local news. And that's an even bigger thing, because that's a cascading effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it gets on the local news, people talk about it, oh, Trump was here, and then blah, blah, blah. So I don't agree that it was a waste of time. Is he going to win New York? No. But I don't think that the rally's a waste of time.
Right.
So I was watching Bill O'Reilly today, his podcast, the No Spin News, I think he calls it, because I was just attracted by the title of
It's kind
this.
of a misnomer for him, though, but okay.
Yeah, he's that dude's a pompous son of a bitch, man.
He's a fake asshole.
No, I like him. I
don't like him. He's a
an
fake
alright guy.
asshole.
But he's a pompous son of a bitch. Anyway, he was quoting some numbers from an Ipsos poll, and I thought I'd bring them up because, we're getting very close to election. It's less than 2 months. You realize that?
Yeah, next month. Yeah,
It's
next week,
7
October.
weeks, right?
Yeah.
7 weeks. So in 7 weeks, we're going to be having an election, and these polls are a snapshot in time. They can't predict an outcome of an election, obviously, but they could tell you where things are now. But there's two things in these polls that I wanted your opinion on because they're very contradictory. Anyway, let me read you some of these numbers. So, one of the things they asked is, do you support limiting the number of immigrants who can claim asylum? Mike, 69 to 27. Yes.
Wow.
60.
That
I didn't
surprises
even
me.
think it would be that high.
Yeah, that does surprise me.
So
yeah.
let's round it and say 70%, right?
To like 30.
Support 7 out of 10 Americans support limiting the number of people who can claim asylum. The problem with the question is, what does it actually mean, right? So by limiting, does that mean a little bit, a lot? Like, it doesn't really explain.
It's
but
big. But I think the overall question is not terrible.
no, it's not. It's
It's
actually
not a terrible question. It kind of goes to the point, I guess. But I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, it gives a good idea of where people stand.
Generally,
on it.
yeah. General idea, yeah.
So
Big number. I wouldn't have expected that. I'm not gonna lie.
no, neither did
I would
I.
have expected it to split more down the middle, where we've kind of seen most of the stuff go.
Yeah. And then when it asked, who do you think would do a better job of handling immigration? Trump by 10. Trump 44, Harris 34.
That doesn't surprise me.
No, not at all. What does surprise me, though, is that if 70% of Americans are, at least supposedly, thinking about this and want this limited, why are only 44% backing the man who says he'll limit it? Like, that's why I think these
there's a
numbers
lot
are
of
weird.
reasons. I think his personality might be one of them. I mean, some people just see him as a very, very, like a negative personality. There's a lot of reasons. I think a lot of people are afraid.
No. Mike, the question was... No, I'm sorry. I might have misquoted it. It wasn't about whether or not they support Trump. It says who would do a better job of handling immigration. So it was on that topic alone, and only 44% of the respondents said Trump, 34% said Harris, the rest, I guess, had no opinion. So my question is if 70% of Americans are in favor of limiting those who could claim asylum,
Yeah.
why are only 44% of them saying that Trump's
That's a
the
good
better one to
question.
handle it? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it should be 70 then, because he really is the immigration guy. That's what he's. Honestly,
That's his thing.
every campaign has been about that. Right? The first one was build the wall. Then it was the same thing, get them out, whatever.
So how does that make sense to you then? That's what I'm saying.
It doesn't
Like, I
make
can't-
sense to me. No.
And it's from the same poll. It's all from the Ipsos
It's all
poll.
from the same poll, and it doesn't make sense to. It doesn't add up.
No, not at all. By the way, The question of, do you support quote-unquote mass deportation? 54-42, yes.
See, that's about where I would expect it to land.
Would you?
Yeah, that's where.
Because I would think, like, when people think mass deportation, they're thinking, banging down doors and
Yeah, I'm
tearing.
sure that's what they are thinking, but I'm sure you had the media, right? Wrong, right, indifferent, whatever, over the last year or so have been portraying, not portraying because these things did happen, but they've been broadcasting about all these crimes committed by illegal aliens and some pretty horrific, heinous crimes.
Yeah.
That scares people. So,
And they don't even deport them. See, that's what I don't understand.
And they don't deport them.
No. And I don't understand that. Like, I could understand, look, you're not deporting 12 million people. We all know that. But when somebody commits a crime, even a minor one, I don't understand how people don't want to deport that person. Like, if for nothing else, why should America or New York State or any state have to feed and clothe and house that person in jail?
We shouldn't. Listen, there's some heinous crimes been committed over the last year or so, but we have a lot of very bad people coming across those open borders. That's the problem,
And I'm sure a lot of good ones too, but that's not the point.
Well, there's probably a lot of people coming looking for better their lives, better their families' lives, whichever, okay, I get it. But, do it the right way, please, but I get it.
Absolutely. When they were asked in this poll the most important topic to you in this election, 57% said inflation and the cost of living.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
39% said immigration.
Okay.
25% said threat to democracy. I want to come back to that in a minute. 25% said crime. 24% said the environment and climate change. Obviously, it's not 100%. It's not a zero-sum game. It's just this is the amount of people who claim that particular one. So it might have been like in order, right?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, threat to democracy. I find that a bad thing.
Well, yeah.
Right? So when we hear that, we always think that these must be people saying yes because they're opposed to Trump. But the people on our side see a threat to democracy in the growth of bureaucracy.
Sure.
At least I do.
I do.
So if somebody had asked me, is a threat to democracy high on your list? I don't think it would be very high because I don't really think there's that much.
It'd land right about where that is right there.
But I would answer yes. So it's not just the other side, that thinks that. So the number can be 25%. But I think a good percentage of those are people who think like us.
I think the country's in a very dangerous place, and I think everybody, whatever political side you're on, feels that danger, that sense of danger, like things are not okay.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that's what this is a manifestation of that.
Yeah, and you know what? Let me put this down for a second because I think that would be a great thing to talk about. I do think that even if people can't kind of articulate it,
right,
there's just this general feeling in this country. Oh, because also in every single poll where they ask you, do you think the country's heading in a right direction or wrong direction? It's about 70% wrong.
Oh yeah.
And that's got to be across the board. That's Democrats, Republicans, that's leftists, that's rightists, that's everybody, right? 70% of Americans feel that way. So when we talk about this quote unquote threat to democracy, they're trying to get you to think January 6th and Trump and not conceding
But realistically,
elections.
that's not what we're talking about.
But a lot of people could feel that way because I think everybody does kind of feel this country falling apart.
Well, it is. I mean, look at it.
Yeah.
It really is.
100%.
They're running it right into the ground.
Another question, another one of the items on there that 24% of the people said is the most important to them, and this is where we're going to start talking about polls and what's wrong with them, the environment / climate change.
Okay.
Those are not the same thing, Mike.
Not even remotely.
No, not at all, because I would put the environment very high up on the list.
Well, yeah, I'm a conservationist. I believe in,
Me too.
We should preserve land. We should keep things from polluting. We should definitely do the things we can to
but
make
that
sure
doesn't
we're not
mean we
destroying
buy into
our
this
homes.
climate change stuff.
Climate change is bunk. But that said, environmentalism is important. It does matter.
Absolutely.
It should be high on the list, and it's something that we should be preserving. We shouldn't be poisoning our own home.
Yeah.
You don't poop in your living room. We shouldn't be pooping in our forest. Come on.
No, don't do that. I don't suggest that. So, now we get to the part that's a little confusing. So, if I were to ask you, based on all of those numbers, who would you say is in the lead just as far as the presidential race?
I still think Trump's in the lead, but I think that'll probably show Harris in the lead.
It doesn't show her in the lead, but it shows them, pretty much close. So, favorable view of Kamala Harris. 45, this is just, I guess, personal, not just are you going to vote for her?
Yeah.
So do you have a favorable view of Kamala Harris? 45% yes, 48% no. They have an unfavorable view.
That's not surprising.
That's not surprising. This is a little surprising, though, and this is why I think this poll is not right. And I'll kind of prove it in a minute. Ask the same question about Donald Trump. I'm not going to let you look at the number. What number would you say would have, be honest, what number would you think that would fall on? Just the question, do you have a favorable view of Donald Trump?
Probably lower than hers, probably like 40 or 42, maybe 39, somewhere in that range, 40.
All right, so you're closer to the number than Mike. I would have said 46, 47%, because I think Donald Trump's support, it's not a majority. It's never been a majority. But it's passionate. 45, 46, 47% of this country, that's not great, right? I mean, you want 51, 52%. But I would think that his number would have been higher. But I guess it's because they're asking, do you have a favorable view of him? And I think even a lot of people, like, you know, the montage we just showed.
A lot of his voters like his policy. They don't like him.
Well, I do like him. I was going to point to myself. But I get angry at him sometimes. Very high number, though, 57% unfavorable. I guess I could believe that. But other polls say different. So Gallup says he has a 46% favorable rate, which is actually up from before the assassination attempts. You think the assassination attempts actually increased his popularity?
I do.
How? Why?
Because I think people see it as like wrong, right, whatever it is. People probably see it as some sort of like, a deep state, whatever, like thing to kill this guy. Like this guy's the voice of change, and they're trying to kill him. And I think that resonates with people. The narrative resonates with people, whether it's true or not. The narrative resonates with people, and I think that makes him more favorable to them because they're like, "Wow, this guy really is a freedom fighter. Wow, this guy really is in danger because he's trying to do the right things." I think that convinces a segment of the population.
So I agree with you. I just have a different reason.
Probably be a little sympathy in there as well.
I think it's more something Chris Cuomo actually brought up. We talked about him in our last video, by the way, if you guys are interested. But he had said that, and I think this was a good point, that we really tend to, at least, recently, dehumanize our political leaders and turn them into caricatures.
Sure, absolutely.
I think the assassination attempt turned Trump into a human being.
Again.
Because you see a father, a grandfather.
You see a man bleeding on a stage.
Right.
Screaming
exactly.
fight. That amount of courage is contagious, right? We know that. Courage is contagious. And the amount of courage he displayed on that stage when he was shot in the ear. And listen, you say, oh, it was just an ear or whatever. Take a shot in the ear and tell me how you feel afterwards, okay? Because
no shots, even if it misses, Mike, even if it totally
most
misses,
of you are not going to get up and scream fight after. I'm being honest.
No, I mean, you have obviously you were in two jobs where you were going
I've
to.
had bullets part my head.
The average person does not get shot at. I mean, the average person is not going to ever know what it feels like to have a bullet whiz by, whether it hits you or not.
Holy shit moment, trust me. It will change your perspective on a lot of things. The amount of bravery and courage it took to stand there and do that. To me, what that tells me and what that should tell you is he truly believes in what he's doing. He truly and completely is dedicated to what he is doing, which he believes is the right thing for the country. So whether you agree with him or not, he truly is, committed to what he believes in, and he's not a threat to democracy, not even remotely.
No,
the bureaucracy that exists right now is most certainly a threat to democracy.
It is,
the censorship complex and everything else. But
J.D. Vance brought this up. He had an interview with Tucker Carlson. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't, so I got to just paraphrase.
That's fine.
He had said, he was talking about that very issue, and I thought the way he phrased it was great. He said that the bureaucracy has become a check and balance on the executive branch, which it's not supposed to be, right?
Exactly.
The legislative branch and the judicial branch is supposed to be the check and balance on the executive branch. And he had brought up many times, I don't know if this happens to Biden too, it might, but it definitely happened to Trump, where he would order a particular policy that just wasn't carried out.
Yep.
Like for instance, the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the military did not rotate the troops out of Syria like Trump had ordered.
Yeah, and he's the commander-in-chief.
They lied to him and told him that they would. So you have these unelected people, and again, no matter what side you're on, if you're Democrat or Republican, this should scare the hell out of you. Because the
unelected bureaucrats running your country.
Right,
is not
because
what you
there's a
need or
good
want.
chance that they're doing that to Biden too on something else that we don't know about.
Oh, they absolutely are.
Right.
They absolutely are.
So people need to be worried about that. That should scare people. That there's this unelected check and balance that's just not supposed to be there. They're supposed to carry out the president's orders.
Here's a big sea change that happened that kind of flew under the radar. I mean, not so much. I mean, it was out there a little bit, but I'm not going to talk about it anywhere near as much as it should have been. The Supreme Court Chevron decision.
Yeah.
Chevron, that was huge. That was a huge blow to the Democrat. That's so stupid. Sorry, Democrats. It's not on you guys. That was a huge blow to the bureaucrat state. That's what I'm trying to say. Bureaucrat state, because it basically took the teeth out of their mouth. They can't, create their own laws and go around Congress or go around the executive branch and just do whatever the hell they want anymore. That's what that ruling says.
Well, the ruling says they can't, but they're going to find a way.
Well, they're going to try, but it gives a lot more power back to the lawmaking authority, and it kind of puts the onus back on Congress to do their damn job. Which the congressional approval ratings have been hovering in the teens for years now. Do you know how that changes? How we fix that approval rating? Vote these friggin' clowns out, people. Vote them out.
Yeah, or if they actually did their job,
they're never going to do their job. Listen, they are not bright people. They're not going to do their job. If you're voting for the same person over and over again, hoping that someday you're going to do their job, you're a fool.
Well, a lot of people vote for their, and you know this, you ran for their local congressmen or even senators because of what they could bring to the state, right? If they're somebody that can bring money and projects into the state and jobs into the state and so forth.
And that's backwards thinking, because it's not helping you. It's making it worse for you. And what they're doing is rewarding their donors, and it's the kickbacks and the graft that goes along with it that is unbelievably
Well, yeah, but that's
prevalent.
A separate issue than getting a good project for the state. Or for the
there
locality.
are plenty of good projects for the state, but if you've got a responsible, reasonable person, whichever party in that seat, that actually does the things they're supposed to do, you'll have those good projects, you'll have that money, you'll have everything you need without having to beg this idiot that's just pandering to his donor class base. Vote in real people. That's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be professional politicians. It's meant to be part-time legislators, people who go there and do their job and come home. And that's what you need. You need honest, decent people going into those positions. And I'll tell you right now that you're not going to get that change until you vote these people out and start actually putting fresh blood in there, get rid of the people who've been there for decades, and start actually changing the way things, operate in D.C. Because right now it's all about graft.
So let me ask you a rhetorical question, because I know your answer to this. I read you all those numbers from those polls.
Yeah, okay.
Do you believe
them? I'm sure it's a representative of what they actually gathered. Do I think that it's a representative of how people actually feel? I think that one seemed kind of accurate, probably somewhat accurate. Oh, the numbers seem kind of like they're...
surprised me with that answer.
Well, no, because they kind of mesh with what I would expect to see from people.
Well, you got me confused. You ruined my whole presentation here because you're always saying that you don't believe polls.
I don't believe polls, and I don't necessarily believe that poll, that's a true poll. What I think is that's representative of who they asked. What I think happens with polls is they know who they're asking, what they're asking. You know what I mean?
So they can. And that's what I wanted to bring up now. This is a book called Opinion Makers by David Moore. I told you I'd lend you this book.
Yep.
He was a vice president of Gallup at one time. And I just bookmarked a couple of things I thought might be interesting to talk about here, because polls are good. Well, some of them are. Where I disagreed with you in the last video is when you were saying that they're intentionally trying to misrepresent something, and I said, maybe on things like we just read, right? Like where does America stand on a particular issue? But polls are a business, like I said in the last video, and if they consistently get elections wrong, they're going to be out of business. So I do think they try to get it right. I think they do get it wrong, obviously, because they miss. But I don't think they're trying to, because it just wouldn't make any sense to me for them to manipulate a poll about that. About topics and issues, yes. And we're going to get into that. But about who you're voting for,
that's the one.
I don't think so.
And just to that point, though, what I think,
which point?
I think that what you just said, about the actual who's getting elected or whatever, right? So we're talking about like presidential race polls?
Yeah. Or any election poll.
Right. What I think is happening now, and recently, not really like long term, obviously, but just over the last couple of cycles, like last presidential election cycle, this cycle, what we're seeing is that I think they see the power in polls, and they're trying to use it, almost weaponized version of it. That's what I think is happening.
I think they do that to manipulate policy.
That's why I think 2016, where everybody said Hillary was going to win in a landslide, those polls, that's why I think those polls were so wrong. That coupled with the fact that people were voting Trump that didn't want to say it.
That's what I'm saying. They don't.
Well, no, I do think it's on purpose. I think either one side or the other is paying to get the result they want, so they can use it as like a weaponized version to broadcast out.
Well, campaigns do that. They have their internal polls.
That's what I mean.
But those are ironically the more honest ones, the internal ones, because
but I think
really
campaigns have gone besides the internal. They're taking the internal, external, and trying to use it to steer the narrative.
Well, how do you answer my point then from before that these polling companies that are hired out by whatever agency, whether it's Fox News or
Again,
CNN.
they're being
whatever.
paid. They're going to give a result they're paid for. At some point,
But they're not
gonna-
going to be paid if they're consistently wrong. That was my point. They're a business. They get
They're not
hired
being
out.
paid to be right. What I'm saying is, it's not that they're being asked to do this honestly. They're being told out the gate, listen, this is the result we want because we need to broadcast this. So the polling company goes out and gets the result they want.
I get that in theory, but what I'm saying is that polling company still needs to have a reputation. A polling company that's consistently, these polls are published. So if anybody that follows it, right, can know that we know which polls are consistently wrong,
but here's the
they're
thing.
not going to get hired out.
But they are. RNC still uses the same pollsters.
I'm not talking
DNC
about
still
those.
uses the same pollsters.
I'm not talking about those.
But those are the two big ones right there.
But
right?
those are internal
And the
polls,
media-
and those are political polls. I'm talking about
And the
like,
media lines up with those two kind of parties almost. Like it's all one big organism now, is what I'm trying to say. And it's all towards steering whatever narrative. And it's
I
all
just
money.
don't see the benefit in that. I don't see how
It's about
any
money.
company that gets a reputation. I mean, listen, if somebody, these touts that give out sports picks for gamblers, and they say if
Not
they're
the same thing,
constantly
but I
wrong,
understand. No, I
they're going to
understand.
go out of business.
But it's not about being right. What I'm trying to say is you're looking at this as a right and wrong perspective. That's got nothing to do
no,
with
I'm
it.
looking
It's
at it
about
from a
narrative.
money perspective. I'm looking
Well,
at
it's
it-
about, that's just it. It's about narrative.
yeah, but
It's
I'm
about
looking,
narrative.
but
It's they're
I'm
being
looking at the
paid.
money.
Right, and they're being paid to support a narrative. So
But they're not going to
keep-
get paid if they're constantly wrong. Like these are
It
not
doesn't
things that are
matter.
kept secrets
They
like the
don't-
internal polls.
You're missing the point.
I am.
You are. They don't care about wrong or right.
Why
they
wouldn't
care
they
about
care?
steering a narrative.
Mike, any company again that gets hired out. I'm talking about public polls. I'm not talking about internal polls. I'm talking about
This
the
is not-
polls that
I'm
are
talking about
published
public
in
polls,
the newspapers, on Real Clear Politics, on Politico. That's published out there for you and I to see. If we see a poll that is consistently wrong, everybody else sees that poll. And that company's going to have a poor reputation. There are some polling companies that have very good reputations because they're closer to being right than others.
Because they're not part of that establishment type thing.
Right, and those
No.
others are going to be out of business at some point. That's why all of a sudden polling companies go away.
Because they're being paid to do what they're doing exactly what they're paid to do.
Which
That's
is
my
what?
point. Which is to steer a narrative, to give them a talking point for their narrative.
What would be all right? So I would say here's where I would see the benefit of that. I would say let's say it's a toss-up state, right? A state that's legitimately close, and you wanted to discourage people from voting,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
The question is who does that. So that would be something I could see a campaign doing in an underhanded way.
Well, the
I don't see
DNC would do it, or
any
the RNC
reason
would
why-
do it, and yeah, it would
Right.
be to disenfranchise voters, and that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely, 100%. So I could see that in that particular situation.
And
but
that's
when you
what
have
I'm
a
talking about.
Gallup poll, Gallup is not an RNC-based thing. It's not a Republican. It's not. Trying to think of that famous Democrat one, but it's slipping my mind right now. When I log on to Real Clear in a minute, I'll see it. But those maybe. But even those, you can't be too wrong all the time because they were so embarrassed by the last couple of times, like in Wisconsin, was where they were way off, right? They're in both elections for Trump. Many of the polls,
They underestimated them both times, yeah.
but enormously.
Yeah.
Some of the other states were off by a couple of points here and there, but they do have a margin of error. But the ones in Wisconsin were off by like 6, 7, 8 points. Those polling companies lose their reputation. That's my point.
And I agree with you. And if that was their main concern, then they would be worried about that.
No, I think that is their main concern because they have to get hired
For
out.
the most part, that's really not what they're caring
But
about.
they definitely, the only time that I would say that I understand the point is to discourage people in a particular state.
That's
there
what
would be
you're
no
doing. You're
reason.
disenfranchising voters. That's what
There
you're
would be
doing.
no reason to mispoll New York State or Alabama, right? Because the people are already discouraged from voting. It just wouldn't make a difference, right?
If their internal polling tells them it's going to be close in that state,
Then
there might be a point.
yeah. But they're not going to be close in those states. So I can see it maybe in a swing state.
I think
but
it will
I
be
don't
this
know.
time, but we'll see. I mean, look, they're very unlikable. The Biden administration's had a few years now of destroying everything and pushing inflation to levels not seen since the 70s. So,
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to care about that, Mike, and you're not supposed to
oh yeah,
notice
I'm not
that
supposed to
either.
notice any of that. Yeah, I forgot.
Because
but,
just-
you know,
Go ahead.
everyday regular people go to the grocery store,
Yeah.
right? Everyday regular people go buy gas. Everyday regular people have to go work a second job now or come out of retirement.
Yeah,
to
but
work
you know what
to
the
make
answer
something.
is, right? I mean, they tell you, number one, the administration tells us we're not seeing what we're seeing. So when I went to Dunkin'
Oh, yeah, it
Donuts this
doesn't
morning
exist,
and I
yeah.
got one small cup of coffee and a donut for $5, they say there's not a problem. But you know what other people say? And Kevin O'Leary said this too. It kind of bothers me. Say those are things you don't have to buy, and that's true. right?
Well,
You don't
that's true.
have to stop at Dunkin' Donuts to get a coffee. But if you want the economy to work, then you want people to be able to go to Dunkin' Donuts to get that. Because if people are just buying the necessities of life, the economy's not going to grow.
No, to collapse.
Right. The economy grows by people going on vacation or by people stopping at Starbucks and wasting $6 on a
Well, yeah,
latte
because
or
our,
something
our
like that.
economy's built around it.
Right.
It's, the
So
economy
when
collapses without that.
When they say, oh, well, the inflation shouldn't bother you because you don't need those things, and if you don't get those things, then you could afford the apples and the milk and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's fine. That's true, technically. But in reality, for an economy to grow, people need to spend.
You know what I hate?
What?
All these talking heads that want to come out and talk about, well, you have to understand that, shut up. Just shut up, okay? Because your failed policies, both sides, mind you, because it's been both sides created this damn mess over the last 30, 40 years. Your failed policies are what created this damn mess. They shipped every damn job overseas, and that was Republican and Democrats. Nobody gets a pass on that one, right? Because George Bush is the one who actually started NAFTA. Clinton finished it, but George Bush started it. And everybody knows that, but that's how it really
No, that
happened.
was a bipartisan.
Yeah. NAFTA was one of the worst things they could have done for our manufacturing industry. Just flat out.
Huh?
They over-regulated farming to such a degree that now you can't farm unless you're part of these giant conglomerates that can afford to bribe some politician to get a free pass on your shit. They've done everything to destroy the damn country and everything that built the country and everything that made the country what it is.
Yeah, but-
taking away every piece of the
But the other side of that, Mike,
stability
you're
of our
missing the
nation.
other side of that. I mean, again, they wouldn't do that if they thought it was going to destroy everything. It does make the economy grow because when items are cheaper, which is what the whole point of that was, and it is true, right? When things are made in China or they're made in Mexico, so we get them cheaper, so you could save $3 on your package of boxer shorts if they're made in China. That allows you to then spend more money on other things. So that's kind of the theory of that, right? That the lower prices, that's why this is all hypocrisy. When they tell you that you shouldn't worry about the high price of coffee, well then why did you tell me for the last 30 years that the whole benefit of globalization and all that stuff was to get prices lower so that we could spend more? So they're just contradicting
When
themselves.
NAFTA first got passed, I had this argument with a friend of mine back then, and he was very, very left at that point. He's still very left, but we had this argument about it, and I told him why I disagree with it. He told me why he agreed with it, and he kind of made a similar point of, well, it'll make things cheaper or whatever. And I said, okay, but if all those Americans who worked all those jobs are out of work now, how the hell is it still any affordable to them? Because it's not.
I'll tell you how. Because it happened, and now we're seeing the kind of bad effect of it. Because we went from being a country that produces things to a retail country, right? So where did the jobs go? So the manufacturing jobs disappeared, but the retail jobs come along. So now you got, who's the biggest employer in America? Walmart.
Right, so you went
Right, you
from
understand?
making a living wage manufacturing to now making minimum wage
Bingo.
at Walmart.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
because that's better.
Well, listen,
Clowns.
these are the people that run our country. Back to the
Vote
polls.
these bums out. Enough with the dirtbags. Vote them the hell out. Get them out of there and get some real people in there.
So back to the polls. I wanted to read you. I just tagged a couple of things here.
Okay.
So this is from a guy who used to be, again, the vice president of Gallup. Said the hard truth is that on most policy issues, large proportions of the public know or care little about the specifics, and thus have developed no meaningful opinion about them. But news media polls typically gloss over the public ignorance and apathy, and instead, through the use of forced choice questions, squeeze some type of answer out of virtually all respondents. Now, what they're meant by forced choice is they'll say, like, for instance, let's go back to 1993, are you for NAFTA?
Right.
Now, that's a forced choice, right? So
Yeah,
the person
either you're
has,
for or
what's the
against
person
it,
going to
there's no
answer?
in
They got to
between.
say, well, I mean, regardless of how much they know about NAFTA. So that's one way that the polls can be manipulated, right? Because if people don't know very much about something, they're going to tend to say they're for it.
Sure, because they don't want to be the negative one.
Right, because, oh yeah, that sounds good. North American Free Trade Agreement, sure. I'm for that. But it doesn't mean that they know anything about it. And that's one of the problems with the polls, is that most of these polls, these forced choice polls, where they don't give the option for don't know. Right? They'll give an option for no opinion, but they don't very often give for don't know. I would venture to say that even in 93, when this was a big thing, 30-40% of the country probably had no idea what NAFTA was.
I'd say probably more than that.
Maybe.
Probably
I mean,
more
it was
than
in the news a lot, but I would still say a lot of people probably didn't know. So I thought that was something interesting. Another thing that he wrote is he said, the lesson I learned is that people tend to be accommodating when they answer polls, what I was just alluding to.
Yeah.
If we pollsters want them to guess at an answer, they will.
Yep.
If we want them to admit that they don't know enough to offer an opinion, most will do that.
Yep.
Yet even when given an unsure option, very few people will persist in answering questions when they know nothing about the topic. A point illustrated, get ready for this, by George Bishop and his colleagues at the University of Cincinnati with a 1986 poll that found a third of respondents expressing an opinion about a non-existent public affairs act. They made something up out of scratch. This was just an experiment to see what they would get, and they got response. Oh yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah.
Or no, I don't like that.
Yeah, it's a likability thing.
Because people just want to express an opinion.
Right.
So he says, although media pollsters rarely, if ever, deliberately trick their respondents, they all too frequently include questions about arcane issues without trying to measure how much people actually know about the subject. So when we see these polls, right? So when we see these polls that say, 25% of the country says climate change is a big issue, ask them to explain climate change.
Exactly.
A lot of them probably could. Either way, right? Whether the people are,
for or against,
bingo,
whatever, right?
Exactly. So that's where a lot of these polls could be misleading, and that is where and it's in the book, that's where you are 100% right. I disagree with you on the part about the voting. Like, I don't think that those polls are really swayed. I don't think, at least intentionally, because I really do 100%. Believe they want to try to get it right. But they definitely do it with policy, and that's why, and this guy really gets into it in the book, so I want you to read it. I think you'll enjoy it. That's where the political parties actually put out polls purposefully to get an answer like people are for NAFTA. So that then there'll be I know I'm going back 30 years here, but then there'll be a general feeling out there that, Americans are in favor of this, so now what do politicians do? Well, they have pressure on them. 80% of Americans are for this, I got to vote for it, right? So that's where they do manipulate the answers to the polls. Again, not by deliberately lying, that's what he said, not even by deliberately tricking them, but by giving you a forced choice answer, knowing full well that most of people don't know what that
there's so many more tricks than even that. But I mean,
that's just one. It's a 300-page book.
Yeah, there's thousands of tricks, but yeah, I'm like, polls are a snapshot. At best, polls are a snapshot in time. At best, So, and that's if it's not being biased or manipulated or some other way, like, obviously. So, I'm not a big fan of them anyway, but I think that one that you wrote out earlier was actually probably somewhere in the right ranges.
Well, I mean, I have no way of knowing if it's right or not. I mean, again, it just
just by sentiment overall, but just by overall sentiment, just from my own perspective. I'm not saying it's obviously inclusive at all, but just from my own perspective of what I see, when I'm out on Long Island or New York or wherever, or when I'm out even on social media, whatever, the sentiment I see that kind of meshes about with the sentiments I'm seeing about across the board on things.
Well, what he brings up about the just the who you're voting for type of poll, right? And why you see so many fluctuations is because they poll too much. So they ask the question over and over and over again, whereas in reality, most people don't think about this as much as you and I do, right?
No, absolutely not. No, they already know kind of where they are, and that's it.
So when they get polled, no, I didn't mean that. I meant they just don't follow it that much.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay,
most people don't sit around all day watching cable news.
A lot of people don't vote.
A lot of people don't even vote, right?
Yeah.
But and that's another thing they bring up in there. Is that very often they don't really distinguish between a likely voter or not. They'll just say, and that's a lot of these questions. They'll say, "Do you support Donald Trump?" So maybe 35% of the people say yes, or 80% of the people say yes. But what percentage of them are voters? They don't tell us. So it's not really predictive of
what the vote
an outcome in an election.
Right.
But one of the other things that he was saying that I found interesting is that when they poll people and they start polling you in March and then April and in July and so forth, the reason for these fluctuations are because it's legit. A lot of people in America have not made up their mind a lot yet. By the time you get to September, October, you do see those polls start to get closer to where the actual outcome is. The only thing I would say is an exception is any election Donald Trump is in. Because I can't believe that there's anything but a negligible little percentage of people out there that have not formed an opinion on Donald Trump already. I just can't. When people say they're undecided, I can't believe them. I think you either love Donald Trump or you hate Donald Trump at this point. I just don't think this is a typical election where people are making up their mind when they get to the voting booth. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think most people either know or they don't know. I know this. I can tell you this just from me personally, right? I talk to a ton of people still on social media, all over the place, and the energy for Trump, and a lot of these people do not like him personally. Like, they do not think he's a nice person. They don't think he's a very
Which, by the
decent
way,
person.
he's a very nice, decent person from everything I've read, like in real life.
Everybody I know who knows him or has dealt with him personally a lot said the same thing. He's actually a really nice guy. He's actually a very nice person. But I've also heard stories from people who've dealt with him personally that said he was a bit of an asshole. In other
I've
words,
never heard that about him.
listen, only a few people, but he's human, right? He can be probably a prick at times, and he'd probably be a really nice guy at times. He's human. That's the end of the day. But what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing it a lot from people I know that consider themselves, pretty staunch Democrats that are going to vote Trump because they just, for a number of reasons. I mean, but probably the predominant number one reason I'm hearing is the economy. Everybody's talking about the economy. This election is not about Trump versus Harris. This election is about the economy.
But do you really believe that there's a substantial amount of people that haven't made up their mind yet? That's what I was
Not
saying.
at all,
But
no.
that's what I was saying. That's why I didn't understand why you disagreed with me.
I
think
don't
people have made up
I'm not
their
disagreeing
mind.
with that part of it. It's some other things, but with the whole, people not make up their minds thing. No, I think it's about likability on the phone, right? People even on the phone want to be liked. They want to feel like they're contributing. They want to feel like they're part of some whatever.
People feel they have to answer a question. in
Yeah,
a
they
certain
feel
way.
obligated. So I mean, they're gonna throw an answer out.
But that's the other problem with polls right now is that there are no phones anymore. There's no more landlines. People don't have landlines. So most people block their phones or don't answer if it says scam likely.
We still have a phone hanging on the wall with the long cord.
We have it too, but we don't use it. So that's a problem. So a lot of these are online polls, and the people who answer these polls, on social media or online, these are people who are passionate one way or the other. Trump's, and you have to use the word fan base, right? I mean, it is. It's a fan
That's kind
base.
of what it, MAGA, yeah.
Are passionate. So
yeah.
that's why you feel that energy. That's why there's 60,000 people, even though 60,000 is a very, very small percentage of the population of New York, but it just feels a certain way because his supporters are passionate. Maybe Kamala has some, but I don't think she really has a fan base like Donald Trump does.
No, she has.
Donald Trump's voters would walk on hot coals to vote for
Oh
him.
yeah. Listen, I think Kamala has the standard issue, whatever. We vote Democrat, that's what we do, and that's the kind of vote base she'll have that'll turn out. Where he does. He has the voter base that'll brave a hurricane, crawl over hot coals,
Yes.
fight Godzilla,
Absolutely.
You know.
Which is why I think Trump doesn't understand that we really do need the mail-in voting and all, because he really does think that the people who are going to vote for him will come out in a blizzard to vote for him. And I think he's right to a point, but I just think at this point we just have to play the game by the rules that are there now.
They've been for a while now. They've been encouraging people to get out early and
I
vote
hope
early.
so.
We have early voting in a lot of states right now, so make sure you get out and get your vote in.
I think it already
Just vote.
started. Yeah,
Go
right?
vote. Right, early voting started in more than like 3 or 4 states already, so like Pennsylvania,
I think
Virginia.
Pennsylvania. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, so get out and vote. Bank your vote now. Make sure your vote gets counted. Get your vote out. Go ahead, go out and vote. Make sure it gets counted now.
So we don't know where the state of the election is. I would venture to say it's close to 50-50 at this point if I had to guess, but who the hell knows? But the polls are going to fluctuate, but I think you're going to start to see more numbers steadying now. Mike, I just wanted to bring 2 things up to you because I know you were very upset about both. Well, no, one of the things you were upset about, the fact-checking in the debate.
Yeah,
So-
that was just awful. That was so lopsided and awful.
But ABC News did correct themselves on something because I don't think it was their job to do this.
I don't
I
either.
don't think they should have done it to Trump, and I don't think they should have done what I'm about to bring up about Harris either. But Martha Raddatz on the ABC Sunday Morning Show about a week ago acknowledged that Harris's claim that not one member of the U.S. military is in an active war zone or combat zone for the very first time this century was an outright lie. And on ABC, the network that sponsored that debate, Martha Raddatz pointed out, fact, we have 900 soldiers in Syria whose lives are in danger every day,
Yeah.
2,500 in Iraq whose lives are in danger every day, action on the Red Sea, Delta Force and Navy SEALs who are often involved in deadly raids. So
Others.
I don't think it would have been David Muir's job to tell Harris that. I think it's Trump's job. But if he was going to correct Trump
You should have corrected
on
that, too.
his errors, should have corrected it. But at least ABC redeemed themselves a little bit.
I don't
here,
think they redeemed
you know?
themselves. I mean, they picked one thing that they absolutely had to kind of go back on. There's like 50 things she said that they could have easily have gone back.
Yes, and there are 50 things
And
you
they
could have
should-
corrected Trump on too.
But they should have
stayed
not
the hell
done
out
it.
of
Yeah,
it.
they should just not have done it.
Stay out of it. That's not the Mike. Even
not
if you
their
watch
job.
a high school debate team, moderators don't make the
I
correction.
agree.
Can you
I agree.
imagine a spelling bee, and one of the kids is spelling something, and one of the panel says, "Remember now, I before E except after C, unless it sounds like A, as in way neighbor and way."
We don't carry
You don't
water for
fucking
them.
help the contestant.
Yeah, we don't
you know?
carry water for them. We let
No.
them sort out their own shit.
So I don't think it would have been David Muir's job to correct Kamala Harris there.
No, but it shouldn't have been his job to correct him either.
No, but if he was
But
going to
those-
correct him, he should have corrected her, because all the people out there who say that, oh, well, Trump lies, that's why you need to correct it.
But-
this was a big lie, because this was about death, Mike.
Well, here's the update on this one.
What's
The official complaint has been filed with the FEC by the whistleblower from ABC News, talking about Kamala's campaign getting the questions beforehand and being promised that they would fact check Trump and not fact check her.
I didn't see
And it's
that.
documented. It was posted today. It was filed.
Can you
It's
forward me the article?
I'll forward it to you. Yeah.
I didn't see
So it was documented. It was done. So it's like Hillary 2016 all over again, right? With Brazil, with Donna Brazil, and the questions being fed to Hillary first.
that. Yeah, well, that, by the way, for everybody out there, that's established fact.
Well, Brazil put it in her book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
established fact. All right, one last thing. You were just talking about, what was the word you used? Energy for Trump?
Yeah, there's a lot of energy for him.
So
But his
CBS,
fan base is vocal, so yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
so CBS News mornings. I think I wrote down September 17th, but don't fact check me. That might have been
Fact check him.
might have been September 16th. Anyway, they say, I never really understood this. Fox News does this a lot. They send people to diners, whatever. But anyway,
It's not representative.
so CBS News went out to Nevada,
Okay.
and went to 3 different places. Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, which is a pretty blue area. It's very, Union.
yeah, North
pretty
Philly,
blue area.
North Philly, yeah.
Pahrump, which is very conservative, and then up
Yep.
north in Reno, which I would say leans left. It's close to San Francisco and Northern California and stuff like that. Anyway, those were the 3 areas. So
makes sense.
southern, middle, northern Nevada.
Okay.
They went to, it was Adriana Diaz was the correspondent. She went to a diner in each of those areas. And she, guess how many Harris supporters she found in the diners in all 3 of those cities?
Like combined?
Yeah, combined.
Maybe 10 or 15, 20.
3. So one in each. Now listen, this is
That's
again,
awful.
this is from CBS. The reporter herself, Adriana Diaz, and I know you think these networks are biased, and she said, when she was reporting on it, she said, "We left no stone unturned." She said, "I still only found 1 Harris supporter in each place." She says, "I approached every single person in each of those diners. Hold on, let me finish.
Yeah,
They
don't tell her.
expressed dismay with the economy, dismay with inflation, weakness of our government, and illegal immigration." This is from her now. She said, this is a CBS reporter, and all you out there saying CBS biased and all of that.
No.
This was real report. Now again, I don't think diners are. I never
It's
understand
not
what this is.
necessarily representative, but okay,
But
yeah.
the word that she used is, she said the exact word you did. She said, you cannot even explain the energy of the Trump voters in Nevada.
Yeah.
Now, Nevada, Trump was up by like 6, 7 in the polls when Biden was in it. Now it's kind of evened out or whatever. But that energy is something. It does mean something, because you go to the polls when you're energetic.
Well,
You
that's
go
just
vote.
it. You're motivated. What I think is motivating people is 2 things, right? I think you have the Trump MAGA base that are going to be motivated for Trump regardless.
No matter what.
Right. They're going to be motivated. That's a big part of the energy, right? But on the other side of that energy, what you have is a very large number of people who are motivated because their lives are harder right now.
Yes, exactly.
They can't afford things. They can't go on vacation. They have to work a second job. They have to come out of retirement. That friggin' motivates people. They're pissed off. They're hurting.
And that's
and
why
they know it's wrong, right, and different whether Kamala had anything to do with Biden policy or not. Which
No, it
we all
doesn't
know
matter.
It doesn't matter to them because
Doesn't
she's
matter.
part of that team. She's guilty by association no matter
Mike,
what, and they're going to come out.
It's always been like that throughout American history.
Well,
right?
that makes
It
sense,
doesn't-
right?
You could be a great person, a great politician, a talented politician. If your party is in power and people don't feel good,
You're done.
it's over.
Yeah.
And that's why I said to you a number of times, you should be right when you said 55-60% you thought Trump was going to win.
I still think, yeah.
That's what it really should be if this were a normal election. I just think Trump just brings out such passions both ways.
No,
The
he
love
does. He
and the
pisses
hatred.
people off. He does.
And-
Because he goes at him. He does.
Listen,
he's
as
got
low
no
as-
filter.
As low as Biden was in the polls, Trump was beating him. 40% of Americans were still willing to basically vote for a corpse over Trump.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it's crazy. It's fucking nuts. That's my point, is that Trump brings out the passion on both sides.
That's
but
where-
I think his quote-unquote fans, I couldn't believe you just said 40%, because he had always had like a 46-47% approval rating until COVID. But even then, it bounced back up after a while.
Yeah.
He never really had a low floor. He doesn't have a high ceiling, but he never had a low floor, because those 46-47% of Americans that love him, he was not wrong, Mike. If he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue,
It wouldn't matter.
they'd vote for him.
Yeah.
Doesn't
They're
I hate to admit it.
Completely dedicated. No, they're
I-
completely dedicated. Completely dedicated. Look, I base my stuff, like my thoughts and everything, on what I see, what I hear, what people tell me, what people are talking about. And like I said, I am across the spectrum. I read articles from across the spectrum. I read books from across the spectrum. I talk to people from across the spectrum, so I kind of have a better idea of where things lie. And I said, I know a lot of Democrats that plan on voting Trump. They would never admit it publicly. I'll tell you that.
no,
You
a
know.
lot more are, Mike.
There are some that
told you
are,
my
but I mean, like
heart
the people I
experiment.
know, like the people I've been talking to, or the people who reach out to me, the Democrats who reach out to me are
Mike,
saying,
a lot
listen,
more people are more vocal about
I'm
it now.
gonna-
That's the thing that I
they're
think.
telling me, like, I was just going to sit it out. I wasn't even going to vote, but
No,
now
a
I
lot
know
of
I
people
have
are
to
voting
vote
for him.
Trump, and like I hate myself for it, but I know I have to. And I'm like, I tell people all the time, like, look, you're not voting for the man, you're voting for the policy. Just look at it like that. And
I
that's
mean, look,
my
I don't think we have like there were Reagan Democrats. I don't think we have a large group of people like Reagan Democrats, like Trump Democrats. But the people are a lot less shy now. I told you a million times and told them in my
7-Eleven,
neighborhood,
yeah.
the 7-Eleven. Now
Yeah.
they're selling, what do you call it, hologram? I think you call them, like the flashy.
Oh, yeah.
That you say Trump was right all along. You would have never seen this shit in my neighborhood back then.
We know what I see. I for my job, I drive all over New York, and I am seeing, everywhere from very, very conservative areas to like the most liberal areas you could imagine. And the amount of Trump like flags and things I see is, let's just talk the liberal areas, right? The ultra liberal areas.
Yeah.
Okay, I am seeing Trump flags everywhere.
Well, you saw the turnout for him in the Bronx. Remember when he was on trial in New York? And
These
he
are
went to
like the
Bronx?
most blue areas in the state, and I am seeing Trump stuff everywhere in those areas. I've seen literally 5 times where I could tell you I saw like a Harris Waltz yard sign or a flag,
Yeah.
to the literally thousands of ones I've seen, and these are in ultra liberal areas.
Yeah. Now again, I mean, we don't know. If
Blows
this
my
could
mind.
could just be anecdotal stuff. Who knows? But
That's exactly it. There's no way to measure that and make it look.
But
like
I just
it's-
think the fact that it's even out there,
Out
where
there
it
and
wasn't
happening.
in 2020.
Listen, the energy is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I
Off the
mean,
charts.
I don't know. Who the hell knows? This election might be, could be
We'll
close.
find out.
But
I mean, we're going to find out soon enough,
we'll see.
right? But
the polls are the polls, and
Yeah.
that's the only information that we have really. That's I don't know. I don't want to use the word legitimate, but it's scientific. I don't know. Who the hell knows? I mean, what we see with our own 2 eyes, you just can't judge by that. But
listen, it's just a snapshot in time. It's something that should definitely be taken into account and looked at.
I'll put it to you like this: I wouldn't be surprised if he wins, and I wouldn't be shocked if he loses.
I'd be shocked if he lost. I'll be honest with you. I would be.
I wouldn't be
Just
shocked. I'd
because
be
of the energy.
disappointed.
Just because of the energy.
Yeah, but
well, I'd be
Mike,
disappointed too.
the energy on the other side, the hatred of Trump, is also energetic.
But it's
It
not
is
like
what it
before.
is.
But it's not like I hear some very vocal ones.
Yeah.
But even at that, like it's not as many. I don't see as many. Like I don't see it as much as it used to be. Like I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's
But
like something shifted. But we'll
he
see
gets
what
me
happens.
mad, as you saw in the montage. But
the montage.
listen, I got to be honest with you. I mean, in 2016, I was an OG. There's nobody. I don't care who you are. You cannot tell the truth and say you were for Trump before I was. Dude, I had a MAGA hat. I could prove it. It's somewhere on the internet. Somewhere on the internet is me at the New Hampshire State Fair in the summer of 2015, wearing a MAGA hat,
All you
arguing
OSINT people out
with
there.
Chris Christie.
All the OSINT people out there, pick this guy up arguing with Chris Christie in a MAGA hat.
It's there. It's
2016.
got to be somewhere out there because he had a
You
film
guys-
crew with him.
Find it, kick it out to us. We want to see that.
But-
We're going to put it back on the show. We'll give you credit for finding it. We want to get it on the
But
show.
all
we
it
can
would
show
do
this
is it
guy.
would just prove that I was an OG. I had that Make America Great. I loved
Chris
him.
Christie.
I wanted him right from the beginning, and I really thought he had a chance of becoming president right from the beginning. 2020, I wasn't so sure because I think COVID just threw a monkey wrench into everything.
COVID.
Now, I don't know. It's just driving me crazy because 2 months ago, there was no chance he could lose. Just zero chance he could lose against Biden.
Well,
Zero
Biden
chance.
was going to get crushed. It would
Now-
have been a landslide with Biden. Without a doubt, there would have been no doubt about a landslide with Biden.
I agree
Yeah.
with you. I don't know 60%, but it would have been state-wise. I think it would have been a landslide.
Still going to be a landslide.
I don't know. Who knows? I really don't know. Anyway,
We'll see.
we'll find out on the dirt road.
All right.
In fact, you know
Guys.
what? If we learn how to do it live, if you know how to do this shit live,
We can do it live. We'll do
We
live
can
on
do
election
on
night. We'll do a
election
live
night.
show on election night.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys tune in on the channel on election night.
Don't make promises
We will
you
be
can't
live. We will be live.
Lauren, you know how to make us live?
I know how to make us live. It's not hard.
All right.
Okay. We will go live on election night, and we will be here, and you can watch Rick lose his bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm not losing that bet. Anyway, you know what, though? Election night may last 4 fucking days. Remember by the time they
That's true. We'll do our best. Okay.
Anyway, what are we up to?
I might be
Almost an
yawning a
hour.
lot. I might be yawning a lot that night. Anyway,
Right.
guys, get in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Is Trump going to win New York? Is Trump going to win? What's going on? Get in these
What do you
comments
think?
right down
Was
here.
that rally a waste of time in New York?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts. Let us know
And
your
what do you
comments.
think of polls?
Yeah. Remember, like, subscribe, share. Let's get in the conversation. Let's share it out. Let's get everybody talking, and let's all move together.
Good
Be
night.
good. Good night, guys.